sorry if you heard my emails. The whole blue thing going on is because I need to match the book cover, which I think I've done a good job. I think I've done a slightly softer color palette, than the book. I'm going to put this earbud in so that I can do some book tapping, and then I'm going to tell you what this video is kind of like all about. So this is another book review. I kind of did this in opposite order, where I filmed the starting a new book video before this one, where I do the review of the book, but I couldn't wait to start that other one. I really couldn't wait to start that other one. I really couldn't. I really love spine tapping. I really didn't do a number on this book spine. It actually stayed mostly intact. There we go. My nails are in currently a state of like disarray. I need to really get on them. After having my nails painted for so long, they were in like rough shape. I need to figure out how to like control for like them not getting completely like effed up while I have nail polish on. But it's a learning process. I really wanted to do green nails for today, but I thought I would give them another week of just being nice and clean and clear, so that I could work on like getting them back to a better place. But this is the book review of The Spear Cuts Through Water. By Simon Jimenez. And this book review requires this whole getup. It requires the makeup, because this book, if you are a reader, I almost would say that this is like essential viewing, reading, like whatever you call it. This is phenomenal. It is completely like, I don't even know how to describe this in a couple sentences. That's why this video is likely as long as it is. I was gonna do a script for this, but you really can't script me. I fear if I ever become like a video essayist on YouTube, I would need like a very like heavy sort of like I'd need a shock collar that stops me from rambling so much. But okay, I'm really trying to like mix the tapping sounds in. I find it hard to continue tapping when I'm rambling, but, well, no, I don't, that's a lie. I can do anything while rambling. But anyway, this book, I'm going to start at, okay, I'm gonna kind of break this review up into a couple of different, like, segments-ish, where I discuss a couple of the different, like, things that I love about this book, like the different elements. This thing is a masterpiece. This book is, I like, it's anybody who writes a work of art that is this, like, perfect, I would say, deserves to be absolutely proud of themselves for as much use of the second person perspective. There is a lot of it that is told through second person segments, and if you watch the video where I read like the first, I think it's like 60 to 90 pages of this book. No, 60. I read a lot of these pages because it doesn't have any chapters. It is just broken up into 5 segments, and the book is like 518 pages long. So like split that up, you're getting over 100 pages per segment. And there's also a beginning and after part, which are the beginning part is quite long, so I would say it shakes out to being less than 100 pages per segment, but it's fairly, and the after portion is not huge. But the structure of this book is so unique because essentially it is being told from the perspective of you. You have 9 brothers, your father, and your Lola, and your Granjo, or is it Granjo? I don't know. Like I looked it up, and there are 2 different pronunciation resources that I found that said Granjo, as in like the Spanish J, how it turns into a sound, and then there's also Granjo. I'm not quite sure. So that is the perspective that it is generally told from. Like the framing device of this novel is that you are in a sort of a theater of ancestral memories. It is heavily implied that your family is an immigrant family that has, at least in the modern day of this book, tenuous connections to what is called the Old Country, which is where the majority of the action in this book takes place. But you are, in the beginning, you kind of have a relationship established with your Lola. She tells you like the old stories of the Old Country. She tells you about the Old Country and different like legends and myths, but not myths of the Old Country. And I think that it is so genius because then, I believe I did read this in that video where I began this book. You are told by her about a place called the Inverted Theater, which is where this sort of like ancestral memory thing comes in, where once in everybody's life, and I believe it is heavily implied that only members of the culture of the Old Country experience this, where at least once in your life, or just once in your life, that's kind of left ambiguous, you, when you fall asleep, will one day be invited to the Inverted Theater. And this is the page you can see. That sort of page break on this page over here says welcome to the Inverted Theater. And this theater is where an ancestral memory will sort of be played out in like a staged show form, which is heavily implied to be sort of communicated through interpretive dance and narration by a character that is only referred to as this moonlit body, I can't get off track. So, in this sort of framing device, the rest of the book happens. You are seeing this moonlit body play out an ancient legend in which 2 warriors and 1 goddess have to make a pilgrimage across the Old Country in order to save the country from the shackles of tyrannical leadership. And the story is all told through this framing device because very often you are pulled out of the sort of action of this stage show where they're talking about the journey of this, of the 2 warriors and the goddess, and you are able to kind of like take like a breath. There's a point in time when you like see the, sorry, my webcam was shaking, but you are able to like take a breather, and it is still very much from your perspective, which I find quite interesting. So then the other structural thing about this book that is sort of unique is that there are often these page breaks. So like where it says welcome to the inverted theater, where this sort of italicized and stylized text is placed in, and it is used, like I would say, nearly like on average every 3 pages, where the paragraphs will stop for that italicized text. And as you go through, you become very used to the almost lyrical nature of these page breaks, and how, so there you can see above my pinky, there are 2 there as well. It begins to pace things out. They sometimes signify like a mood shift. They sometimes signify a scene shift, a shift from you watching the play that is being done, that is being performed by this moonlit body, and then you are taken into sort of a memory of your Lola telling you a story, or your father leaving for the war, or this, that, and the other thing. It really is an ingenious device that Simon Jimenez uses to kind of create flow in a book where chapters are not present in, at least in the way that we think of them. Yes, there's before, there's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and then after. But those, I would say, are less sort of unified than a single chapter is. It's not as though, like, the first chapter is dealing with the first terror, and then the second chapter is dealing with the second terror, and the third chapter is dealing with the third, and that kind of thing. No. It is sort of more a, it's breaking up the time that is going by in the story, and really it is just told as one story. And in this book, if you're not counting, well, if you are counting the beginning, 6 days are going by the end of the book, and then if you count the after, it then ends up tracing a centuries-long lineage between you and one of the characters in the book. And that is the sort of titular spear, that sort of after part tracks, which I just find this is such a good book. So that is the sort of first, oh yeah, here is, and like often you'll find like here before you arrive, there's always little call forwards to like something that you're going to be reading about next, which is just, oh, it's so good. But anyway, that is the first triumph of this book, that it breaks so thoroughly from a lot of different sort of devices that we are just married to in literature today, where there are sort of like the chapter format, and there's not many sort of instances where I see, at least in many of the books that I've read, all of the books that I've read in my lifetime, where it plays with structure and it plays with perspective in such an interesting way. Because when you're in the action of what Kima and Jun, the two sort of main 2 characters, the 2 warriors, when they are in the action, you are still watching it as a play, which is just ingenious. But anyway, the next thing that I need to talk about is the writing in this book. This book is poetry in prose format. If Simon Jimenez came out and said that this book is meant to be an epic poem, I would be like, yep, absolutely. Because that is the vibe that you get with this whole, like, with the framing device of the inverted theater. You get this idea that your lineage's story is being told as one of these great Odyssey or the like Journey to the West or things like this, where this book is so gorgeously written. The imagery is like judicious, but also gratuitous. There is such a this book is a feast for the senses. Not once is there a smell that goes undescribed, or a taste that goes undescribed, or a sight that goes undescribed. It is always so gorgeously communicated to you what the feel of this scene is supposed to be. Like, there's such a conscious use of figurative language and language that is meant to sort of evoke these pictures in your mind and sort of simulate sensory experiences that you really feel like you are in this book. And the smallest little things jump out, and it's not as if like they are uncalled for. It's just Simon Jimenez uses the minutia of this book to create a world that I believe is richer than any world that I've ever read. And I don't even know, like, this book doesn't have a sort of a traditional fantasy novel style map in the front of it. It is sort of an abstracted version. It doesn't have many sort of like concrete geological sort of relationships in it. It is all meant to be very like evocative in your brain. A lot of it is left up to you to sort of envision, but the environments that the characters travel through are so vividly described and so richly detailed that you feel like you are in this scene. There's a point in time where Kima and Jun have made it to sort of a very heavily rivered land. There's a lot of rivers in this region of the old country, and it is simply referred to as the Thousand. That is it. These rivers are just simply referred to as the Thousand, and it gives you this impression that this river network just completely encompasses an entire geographical region, and how many there are, and the fact that there are entire communities that just live on boats and they gather in certain areas of the Thousand. It's so richly filled out, but when they first come to the Thousand, when they first get on their sort of barge that they're taking down this one river, there is a lot of time dedicated to the tortoise that they are carrying with them being interacting with insects along this river, because of course this tortoise is hungry, and it is just so well described that this sort of like image of the thousands of rivers and these insects are swarming around, and the heat, and the fact that both of the main characters are just like able to sleep out in the open on the barge, and I don't know, it's just so perfectly described. Like I've said, there's also much later into the book they enter sort of a dry and rocky canyon, and the way that this landscape is described, I swear to God, I was hiking along with them, and then a dust storm hits, and they have to hide out in a cave, and oh my God, it's perfection. This book is so perfectly written that you feel everything that they're feeling, and there is such a raw, emotional sort of weight placed with everything. You can tell that this book is heavily personal to Simon Jimenez in a way that I don't think anybody is really meant to understand. But the feelings that are brought across, that sort of come across in the writing, are really just like Simon Jimenez you feel as though you are in this tale, and I find that to be endlessly compelling. I find that, like, the beauty of this book, the beauty in the mundane in this book, is so perfectly communicated that it's hard not to get into the world. Even like the similes and the metaphors that are used are so beautiful. It's like Simon Jimenez essentially dances with writing in the way that this book flows, in the way that it's written. It feels like you are reading a dance. It flows so perfectly and so beautifully. It's gorgeous. If you are a fan of unique structure, if you are a fan of gorgeous writing, this book is for you. Buy this immediately. In fact, I would say buy this immediately, whoever you are. This book is perfect, at least for me, because I am a person who does enjoy richly written tales. This is the reason why I liked the Sunbearer trial so much, is because that world was so gorgeously fleshed out that it felt real. You felt like you were in it. That is the same thing with The Spear Cuts Through Water, where there's just a lot of ability to get lost in the world that Simon Jimenez has written for you. So that's the structure, that's the writing. We've not even gotten into the plot. The plot is perfection. I will need to read this book again, and I will happily read this book again. I'll probably do it sometime next year. And this is because that a lot of this is, a lot of it will feel allegorical. I found myself wondering, what does this mean? What is this meant to make me feel or think? And I think in certain cases that is very much the case. There is a lot about familial relationships. There is a lot about regret and grappling with the mistakes that you've made in your past, and dealing with self-hatred, and dealing with the sort of not belonging that comes with a difficult family situation, and the self-hatred, and regretting what you have done in your past. There's a lot surrounding that. There's also a lot surrounding sort of tyranny and the nature of power, and the way that sort of power can destroy a person and turn them into a monster. Because, and that's the most interesting thing, one of the most monstrous characters in this book, who shows up quite close to the end, ends up being one of the most earnest portrayals of the sort of the effect that the cycle of abuse has on a child. And this book is not for the faint of heart. It does get, it not gory, but it does get, it's very honest about certain things. There is violence in this book, and it doesn't hold back with descriptions of blood or descriptions of things like that. But then there's also a lot of implied things where this one very monstrous character ends up having sort of one of the most emotional payoffs, and you just feel terrible for what was lost in this character's childhood and the relationship to their father, because it is truly something horrific, and it really does feel allegorical. And then there are some places in this book where it is just meant to serve the sort of fiction. I think that everything in this book is meant to serve, like, the messages, but then there are some places in this book that I think are meant to just tell this tale and, like, talk about the nature of sort of ancestral genius how simple it is. Literally, Jun has to get the goddess, who is his grandmother, has to get the goddess to the divine city by the end of a 5-day pilgrimage so that she can set the world to rights. And along the way they pick up Kima, who is a complete outcast, who doesn't have really a people to his name, but he ends up finding that people, but not in the way that you think. I'm not spoiling this because you need to go and get this book and read it. But the plot is, like I said, incredibly simplistic. They have 5 days to make it to the divine city, and that is that. But the themes and the content that sort of surrounds that plot is gorgeous and beautiful, and the way that it explores character. I think if there is any part of the book that, like, if you're like, oh, I love a character-driven story, technically this is not like this is a character-heavy story. Not really, but it's not supposed to be. Kima and Jun are these sort of anchor points of that, and they are fantastically written characters, especially with the way that they relate to this sort of sense of belonging and this sense of what you leave behind or what you are carrying forward, and how there are some people who have to sort of define that for themselves apart from their sort of not great family situation, or there are some people who have to define that because they do not have that kind of baggage, and they don't even have the sort of relationship to their family to feel like they have to carry something on. They carry through so well. And I think especially Kima. I love Kima in this book because I think if there is anybody who we see the majority of the inner world of, it is Kima. We do see a lot of Jun, but Kima, I would say, is the sort of focal point where a lot of things revolve around, because Kima is the heart of the story, and Kima is also kind of sort of one of the main figures who gets things done. Jun is grappling a lot with his past, and that is interesting in its own right, which leaves Kima to be the one of action, where Jun is the one of reconciliation, kind of. It's so incredible to see how well this is written. The goddess, there's a section in this book where the goddess is the point of view character. Again, within the sort of world of the inverted theater that you're watching this play, and her whole story, her character, her attitude and behavior, you hate her, and you see what she is all about at the same time. You see power being stripped bare. What happens when power is waning? What happens when something is trying to hold on to power? It's just fantastic. It's a fantastic sort of like exploration of that kind of thing, and you end up liking her, but she's not a good person. She's not a person, like a human being person, but she's immortal. She's, well, to a point, immortal, but she is sort of an all-powerful goddess. But you can see how you dislike her, but you like her all the same, and the fact that she is, in her own way, trying to reconcile for a world that she began interfering with, and maybe realizes that she shouldn't have. You kind of get to see that journey as well. It is just gorgeous. Character-wise, plot-wise, writing-wise, absolutely. I think the writing is the strongest point. This book is is, but the writing style is what really catapults it into this sort of stratosphere. Because this would be a gorgeous book if it was written conventionally, but the stylistic choices that are made are what kind of takes it to this next level. Then I would say that the way that this book ends is so wholly satisfying. There is not a thread that is left frayed. There is not anything that you are left questioning about. And at the very, very end of the book, there is a fulfillment of something that has been building the entire story that was really sweet for me to be able to see. Because this book, it does have LGBTQ plus themes and representations. They are not overt. This is not the kind of book that you read for like smut or anything like that. It's not. But this book kind of spoke to me on this channel. I've been open about the fact that I am an asexual person. I am a gay asexual person. And I think that this book has given me a new perspective on what intimacy looks like, what it should mean to somebody, what it can mean to somebody, and how possibly intimacy is not necessarily this thing that I have thought of it being for so long, and how the relationships between people and the way that we look at what love is in today's world is not my way, but that's totally okay, because there is a my way out there. I felt very seen by it. I related to a lot of the confusion that surrounded it in this novel in such a healthy way. It portrayed such an authentic version of what I feel I experience as an asexual person, and then also how I don't have to fit into that mold, if you get what I mean. At this point I'm rambling, but that's okay. Okay, so, like I said, I'll end the video with a little bit of tapping, but this book is, it's not old, but I believe it's from 2021. So, it is, of course, available in paperback, so cheaper than hardcover. This one was $25.99, but frequently I see it on sale. I got it on sale, I think, now that I think about it, but this book is, I would say, a must-own if you like fantasy. This is a no-brainer purchase at all. If you are a poetry reader and not necessarily an avid prose reader, this is your book to get into prose. You'll be left wanting for every other book ever again. I know I am, but even starting Record of a Spaceborne Few, I realized that I miss this style. At least the first couple of chapters in Record of a Spaceborne Few are quite short, and I'm like, I want to hear more because of this book. I don't know. The structure of this book is perfection. The plot of this book is simple but genius. The themes are so useful, and I don't know. This is a must-read for, I would argue, almost anybody. Really, it is so good. It is so good. It is so good. If patches on release day, because this is fantastic.